Welcome in, and I'm talking technique in this video. And stay with me. Try to understand this. Try to watch this with an open mind, because in my experience, coaching tennis for over 10 years, playing tennis for 30 years, experimenting with everything, this is very true and very important. And we're going to talk about principles. And one of the principles that I'm going to mention here is that the more you focus on what's close to your body. So that's the more you focus on what your legs are doing, what your arms are doing, what your racket's doing, versus where you're trying to hit the ball, maybe how you're trying to hit the ball, what your opponent's doing, etc. Farther away from your body, the more you focus on the closer you focus on to your body, the more likely you're going to mess yourself up, or you could say make mistakes. And this is part of the reason why when you're coaching tennis, when you're learning tennis, you don't want to do what's in these videos and what these coaches are trying to teach, etc. On basically anything. As I said, close to your body is going to encourage mistakes. Now, so let me give you an example of what I mean by that. You're coming out, you want to learn tennis. It doesn't matter what this. It doesn't matter what level you are. This video, this principle cuts across all levels. So you come out and you start hitting forehands and backhands from the baseline, from the middle of the court, and coach comes out and coach starts talking about where your elbow is, where your arm is, all of the conventional stuff you see on these videos on how to hit a forehand, etc. Versus coach comes out and you're in the same scenario and it's like, okay, I want you to hit to this target in the back of the court, back and forth. Just as a simple example, there's two extremes. One is farthest away, and one is closest to your body. Now, this is often like an argument. Which one you do? You need to do both? Can you just do one? And as on this channel, I encourage that you can do both, but I encourage that you focus exclusively on one, specifically, especially at first, and see what happens. So that is the one at the focus on what you're trying to do versus what you're actually doing with yourself. And people will dispute this, they'll argue this, and what I'm really presenting in this video is that if you focus on what's closest to your body, you focus on quote unquote technique, etc., and not on these games on how to form technique, you will screw yourself up. And that's primarily, this is a principle that is true, that a lot of coaches and people ignore. And a lot of people are very stubborn. They'll think that they think that they're superhuman. They think they can do better than the average person, and they can get away with this. Well, I do think some people can get away with it to a certain degree. And here's some of the reasons. Here's some of the people that can get away with it. If you're playing tennis, let's say you're playing 70 matches a year, like a professional tennis player. You're playing tennis 5 days a week. You probably can get away with this to a certain degree. You're playing so much tennis, maybe it really doesn't matter. You think of the guy who's a server, big server, big serve, and then usually gets a sitter or something, and then hits an easy ball to a space, or gets a lot of like the same balls that aren't very different. He might be able to get away with this and still win. These are exceptions though. For the average person, and I'll come back to that. I do think that even for them, they still they can ignore this principle at their own peril. But for the average person, you're not playing 80 matches a year. You're not playing 5 days a week. 100%, you're going to, more likely than not, you're going to screw yourself up if you violate this principle. Now, this principle really relates to the quote of saying that your technique follows function, what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do on the court, your form or your technique will conform to that. It will do, the body knows what it needs to do. It will do the right thing in order to make that happen. Now, that is a very simple, really a simplified way of of describing what I'm talking about. It's more complex than that. I'm not going to get into the whole thing in this video. Stay tuned for more videos. At some point, hopefully I will do a full, long, maybe 30, it's going to be like maybe a 30 or 40 hour video series on how to exactly do this and what all this means. But yeah, form, it's that argument between does form follow function, or does function follow form? And there's a lot of people out there that will teach that function follows form, meaning if you want to do something on the court, you have to focus on what the person's doing. It kind of violates that principle that I just mentioned. And what this does is also, as I said, it causes mistakes, and it gives the coach unlimited potential for lessons. And that's part of the reason why I think that this is something that is preferred by a lot of coaches, because it will screw the player up, and they won't know that this is actually, they don't even know that this is a thing. They don't even know why. They kind of just blame themselves. But the reason is not themselves. It's the coach. It's the setting up of the practice. It's all the things that are wrong. It's kind of the idea of let's cause problems, and then we'll come up with the solutions. Maybe you've heard of that. Problem cause. Really, that's what it is. Let's cause problems, and then I'll come up with the solutions. And it's really a never-ending cycle, because it's a long process to get good at tennis. And usually, this is a person who doesn't play matches. So this is another case where you can get away with this. Take a player, they're not playing any matches. They're just taking tennis lessons. They're just rallying, and they'll often say, I don't want to compete. I'm not ready to compete, etc., etc. And this person can get away with it because they're never actually playing tennis. They're always playing they might only be playing with their coach. So everything is kind of regulated. That's what it is. Everything is regulated. This person can get away with this. And this person often will avoid tennis matches. And for that reason, they don't want to compete. And here's what I say to that. You don't have to compete. You can still play points and ignore the score. And oftentimes this person can't do that either. So the way this would work is you play points with the serve. You can serve underneath, you can serve overhand, etc. But you play competitive points. You don't keep score. And then you can still really learn tennis and see how this works, rather than regulating everything. That's what you don't want to do. When everything's regulated, this person can violate this principle. And but as I said, they're not really playing tennis. They're not getting the thing is, I'm all for rallying. I think it's fun. I love the feeling of it, the consistency, a good workout, etc. That's all fine. But they're not getting as good of a workout as if they played points. So even from that perspective, it's still not ideal. They're not getting the variation, all the different movements of the body and what it can do to the brain, etc. I'm not going to get into that in this video. So they're missing out on so much more for reasons, for reasons I'm not really sure what, other than these ideas that they have in their head. So if you're watching this video and you are one of those people, I'm really trying to encourage you to open your mind and understand there's so much more out there. There's so much more benefit to learning and playing tennis if you have this mindset, and you can give up these false ideas about technique and what you need to do in order to get better. So here's the process. The last thing I'm going to leave you with. This is a general, just a quick idea of what this process looks like. So, principle, keeping things away from your body first. First thing, what we're going to do, can you hit this target? Let's play, and can you hit these targets? Or something along those lines. You can make up whatever you want. Keeping it as far away from the body as possible. Okay, so if we really are what we want to form their technique. Let's do that first. Let's set up the game, play the game, play these games with the vision and the brain on what you're trying to do on the other side of the court. Number two, If you want to go further than that, keeping it simple, and you want to get closer to the body, well, can you do this same thing? Can you do this same thing? Can you hit the ball with topspin? Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer to the body. Can you hit the ball with topspin? Can you hit the ball with backspin? Can you vary topspin and backspin? Can you do what we just did with those spins? Meaning, can you hit these targets with topspin? Can you hit cross court and then down the line? Can you hit 3 cross court and then 1 down the line with topspin? And then all kinds of variations of that with spin. You could also say, okay, can you do these things hitting the ball high? Just everything high. We're not going to really be concerned about anything else, about spins or anything like that. Can you hit the ball high? Can you can come up with all these different things what you can do on the court and with the ball. These are the first 2 things you would do. That's how that would look. And then, if that still doesn't work out, maybe you get a little bit closer to the player and try to help them. You try to help them do those things and do those things only. You don't talk about anything other than what's going to lead specifically to those things. Third thing you can do, we're going to look at how the ball's coming at the player. So you might play balls the same way to that player. Move the player away from the player. Move the ball away from the player. Make them run. Hit certain ways to that, like cross court down the line, high, fast, different spins towards the player, and have them practice dealing with that. So that's another thing they're going to do. So I just gave you that alone, it just took a minute. That alone, if you can take that and process that, use that in a practice, you could practice and play tennis for years with those principles alone before you mention anything about how the player specifically is doing that from a perspective of being very close to their body. And during that period, over that period of years, you see what happens. See how their technique has formed. You have patience. You have patience with the player. And then, after all of that's done, I'm convinced, I'm sure that you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see this principle in action. And you'll understand it, and you'll be a better tennis player. And you'll have more fun.